Welcome to everyone. Today our guest is MMA fighter Justin the Fourth Sumter. Justin, thank you so much for accepting the interview. You pretty much had a lot of ups and downs, pretty much rich career, pretty many fights. It seems you're how to say. I mean, I can freely say that you're an MMA vet. You competed many times, so many lovely bouts, violent fights, and you're now riding, we can say, on a good streak. What can you say about your career? Like an intro, then we will go with question by question.
Yeah, I definitely I had a good start. Came out with my first pro fight. I lost that, but that was against a really tough opponent. He was like number one in the region, and I just wanted to test myself. Stepping on the big stage. It was a Bellator fight, but I definitely learned a lot from the experience. And then, as you could see on my fights after that, I was on a I think it was 6 or 7 fight win streak. And then, that's when I kind of went up to the big leagues, quote unquote. I had my Contender Series fight that didn't go well, but the guy I fought with was like, he was number 15 in the world, beat like tons of guys in the UFC. So, it's not really that much sweat off my back. And, then I had a good fight in Bellator, and then I went back to the Contender Series, and then I lost against another good guy that's been, doing pretty good in the UFC. So, I definitely fought some tough competition, and it was just an experience. And, now I feel way more comfortable, way more, I have that experience under my belt. So, like fighting in the local scene, I've probably seen everything that is there to offer in the local scene. So, just kept trying to get my momentum back, and then get on the big stage again.
When did you start training MMA, and which was your first or fundamental martial art?
Well, my first fundamental martial arts would have to be wrestling. I wrestled in high school several years, and then I started MMA in 2011 after I kind of picked up jiu-jitsu. One of my friends was like, "Hey, man, you should start doing jiu-jitsu." And I was doing it for like, I think like a month and a half. And then they were like, "Hey, you want to fight?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And then, I never looked back since. It was July 11th, 2011, I believe. That was my first fight down in Florida. And, I won in a minute and 20 seconds. And so I've been hooked ever since.
How hard was your amateur run from 1 to 10? Who was your toughest amateur opponent? Did you have a hard time? I mean, they say you after a month and a half, are you down for a fight? It must have been a stressful experience, right?
Yeah, not really. You know what I mean? I was just ready to like me when I was younger. I like the experience. I really enjoyed just challenging myself. And they were like, "Hey, you want to fight?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" But my toughest one, let me see if I can remember them all, because I had 14 fights. So, I would say, overall the toughest would probably been Eric Anders. I fought him as an amateur. But yeah, I broke my hand. I broke like the first punch I threw. I broke my hand. But I ended up losing in the first round with him. But I would say overall that was probably the toughest one I had. Or let me see. It was what was his name? It was another guy in Alabama. It was supposed to be pretty tough, but he gave me a really tough time on the ground because I haven't really. By that time, I really wasn't training jiu-jitsu, and he was like a blue belt, and so he was giving me a little tough time on the ground. But I was able to withstand most of his stuff, and then he got tired, and then I just capitalized. So, but yeah, most of them, the difficult ones would have to have been the grappling exchanges because I wasn't really training grappling. I was just hitting pads and I had a little bit of wrestling behind me, so. I can handle myself a little bit more, but definitely jiu-jitsu was a difficult task for me to grasp early in my career.
Can you describe your fighting style? How would you classify yourself?
I would say MMA. I would like a true MMA because I like to strike. I like to I'd rather get a knockout, but I'm not opposed to like if I rock you on the feet, take you down, put you in a uncomfortable position, either pound you out there or submit you. It's kind of a clear case on my last fight. I once I landed the heavy exchange with the knee. I saw that it was rocking. I came in a little overly aggressively. I could have, looking back at the video, I could have timed it a little bit better, but I shot in for that shot. He gave me his back. I took his back and then ultimately finished it with a rear naked choke. So I would consider my style as more of an MMA style, just mixing it up, trying to find the easiest way to take my opponent out of the game.
Who are your coaches and sparring partners? Question one. Question two. Which is the hardest training camp you've ever been to?
My coaches, Nick Newell, Roger, we got Alex Sinico, and Muhammad. They are my striking jiu-jitsu. Roger is more of he's striking as well as jiu-jitsu. He's been around the game for a long time, so he's just a wealth of knowledge. He's been in a lot of fights himself, so I kind of go to him when I have that nitty gritty stuff. I'm wondering, hey, what will really mess up these guys? I go to him, and my toughest training camp would have to be, I would say, my first Contender Series fight. That would probably be the toughest training camp that I've ever been a part of. I ended up tearing my right labrum. I think it was like a month into the training camp. And so I was still pushing it because, that was a great opportunity. Hindsight, I probably shouldn't have took the fight just because of my shoulder, but I was able to kind of fight through that and then, step on the stage and give a competitive outing. But that would definitely have to be my toughest camp.
How hard it is to fight under injury? Is it very hard because you're limited?
Yeah, I would say probably I don't say 100%, but up to 80 to 90% of people, guys that fight definitely go into fights with injuries. It's kind of, the name of the game. Like you're doing a tough sport. It's very brutal on the body. And for you to go through a camp and not, get any injuries is a blessing. You have to, especially like if you injure your shoulders or your hands, you kind of have to dial it down. So one, you still get the work in, but you're not re-injuring or hurting yourself more into the fight. So I would say it's not super difficult, but it's definitely hard because me, I want to push myself 110% every single time. But if you got something kind of nagging you and bothering, hey, your ankle hurts, you can't run as fast, or your hand hurts, you can't really throw your punches as hard as you want. So yeah, it definitely becomes difficult.
Do you have the favorite strike and favorite submission?
My favorite submission would have to be the triangle. I got long legs, you know what I mean? Like when someone's in my guard, that's pretty. Not to say that's my go-to, but if I'm able to get your arm and your head in the same position, I'm going for that triangle. The strike would have to be the jab. I like to have a long range. So, like if I can dominate the person with my jab, I pretty much can set up anything with my other strikes. So would definitely have to be my jab.
How did you feel making a professional debut in Bellator? I mean, it's a very, very big stage. Like second in the world promotion, I think.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. I was talking to my manager when I had my second fight for Bellator, and I was like, man, this cage is much smaller than I expected, because in my head when I went out, it was like the crowd. I mean, that was the biggest venue I've ever fought in, and it's kind of surreal because I grew up watching it on TV and seeing the big name guys go through there. So To step on that stage and to fight like that, it was a really surreal experience. I wish my head was a little bit more in the fight, but that happens. You know what I mean? It was an awesome experience. In Bellator, by far is one of the best promotions I fought for. They definitely had the fighters in their mind when they put it together. They provide everything you need. If you need something, hey, they got a guy that you can call, and he's quick to provide anything you need. So it was a very good experience, especially for my first pro fight. It put a good taste in my mouth with that promotion, and hopefully looking forward to fighting more with them in the future, or whatever they want to do. I'm looking forward to it. So.
Can you describe how do you feel while you walk towards the cage few minutes before the fight? You understand the question, right?
Yeah. It's an experience that it's all the preparation, all the hard work you put in. It's like all that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of rises to the top. Like that hard work, all that sweat, all that determination you put into the camp. It's magnified as that walk, because as you're closer to the cage, and then they lock the cage, everything you did before doesn't matter. Everything that matters is that moment. So a lot of times, I would say, I was telling my coach for this fight that just happened, that I felt the calmest that I've ever felt. I felt the most relaxed that I've ever felt. And again, I think it was more or less that I've had a 4-fight stint with CES, and I felt super comfortable. And being in front of it was kind of a hometown crowd, Hartford, Connecticut, because I live in Woodbridge, Connecticut. So basically, all my friends and family were there, and it's kind of a surreal moment. You can't really explain it. It's a more of a feeling. You walk, and like everyone's cheering, and you just focus on your opponent. You're just walking closer and closer and closer and closer, and like the feeling altogether just feels great. It's kind of surreal. I hope that explains it. That's how it's in my head.
After your Bellator loss, you entered some great winning streaks. So let's get back to that winning streak. Which are the best victories from that winning streak prior to Contender Series, according to your thoughts?
I would say the best one would have had to be the last one against Roger Carroll. He's a real tough veteran. He gave me some different looks that I haven't seen in a fight, and it was a full fight. A full 3 rounds. And I had to kind of push through it. I was in some bad circumstances, bad positions, and he really it really pushed me to that next level mentally in a fight. Because like when you're fighting, you kind of progress throughout your career, and you get different tests, different looks, different feelings in a fight. And I would say that was the most. I was tired. He was pounding me in the face. I was in bad positions, and I was able to overcome that. So I would say that gave me the most experience out of a fight in that winning streak. I would say my best performance would have to be I think, what's his name? Would have to be it was a third fight I had professionally. It was for CES. It was my first one for CES, and I kind of got the ground and pound submission. That was the first. He submitted to my strikes. So you usually get a TKO otherwise, but he was like, "Hey man, I can't really do anything," so I kind of give up. So that was a good experience. You know what I mean? Yeah, those would have to be the most outstanding. Well, there's another one. I had a fight with Cage Titans, and I beat the guy, and right now we're friends just because of that experience. You know what I mean? He lost, I won, but we kind of learned together, and right now, I mean, I could shoot him a message, say what's up, come train with me, and he'll come down in a second. So, Sean Evans is a real cool guy, and from that experience we had fighting together, we kind of made a bond, and so we're real cool guys.
How did you get your nickname?
The Fort, I got that actually before I turned pro. My name was the Machine, and that was one that I coined myself. And back home, I'm from Georgia. I was born in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I don't know if you're familiar with U.S. history, but Fort Sumter was a crucial part in the Civil War for the South, and they were like, "Hey, man, you should change your name to the Fort." And I was like, "Man, I mean, that's kind of corny." And then, once I turned pro and I kind of say, "Hey, just call me the Fort," it kind of rang, and everyone's like, "Hey, man, that's an awesome fight name." So I stuck with it. So shout outs to Mark Jones and Andy Patton, because those are the two guys that kind of pushed that name on me.
That would be equal to, in my state, if people call you Vasil from Vasilevsky, our greatest military leader. That would be the same meaning. So, literally, your nickname means military leader, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much great nickname. So, can you discuss your Dana White Contender Series? You competed both times. How hard it is? I mean, Dana White Contender Series fighters are under pressure that they must finish the fight, otherwise contract might be hanging in the air.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a lot of pressure, because especially you're like, hey, man, I wanna go out there and win one, and then try to finish them second. So you have that in your mind, and like anything that happens kind of could derail your especially if you have a one track mind and say, I have to finish this. I have to finish this fight. If something happens in the fight that kind of derails your thinking, you're like, oh shoot, let me kind of reconfigure my thoughts, because like it's not going the way that I expected it to go. And you can see that especially with my first one. Like the guy comes in, I take his back, and I'm like, okay, I got it, and then I just make a tiny error, and then he capitalizes it, and then I'm like, okay, shoot, okay, what do I do? And then in that split second of thinking, what do I do? He catches with two elbows and puts me out. So it's there's a lot of pressure. Shout out to my friend Carlos Canadrello. He just fought two weeks ago, but he took a short notice fight, undefeated, into the Contender Series, and he lost. But he just, the heart he put out into that fight, Dana was able to see his pedigree, and he gave him the contract as well. So shout out to him. But it's definitely a lot of pressure. A lot of guys, they go in there with that expectation of hey, I'm just going to do what I've been doing, and go out there and finish them. And then something happens, or it doesn't go their way. It's just how they bounce back from that. A good guy to take a look at is Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, he got demolished his first one, and then he comes back and finished his second one, and then he just had a even though it was unsuccessful, but he had just a main event. So it's definitely a good experience. I think if you're kind of serious about fighting, you should definitely try your best to get on that show. Puts a lot of eyes on you, and when you can experience a high level show like the UFC.
How did you finish Reginaldo Felix via neck crank? Neck crank is pretty much hard to finish unless you're very much stronger than your opponent, as much as I know.
Yeah. I think what happened was in the first round, I caught him with a really, really flush knee to his chin, and I think I ultimately broke his chin in that knee. And then once we in the second round, once we got to the ground and I was able to take his back, I thought he was going to fight a little bit more once I put it on him, but he didn't. So I suspect I kind of messed up his jaw with that knee, and then ultimately, once I got his back and put some pressure in there, he kind of, hey, I don't want it anymore.
What was your game plan for your last fight? I think it was Albert Averdosian, right? Something like that. It's Armenian last name, so kind of hard to pronounce.
Yeah. The game plan was just just play my game. He took the fight on short notice, so I knew one, I was going to be ready, ready for anything. My cardio was going to be ready. I knew I had the longer reach, so basically, just kind of played into my game. I have a real good pressure game where I come in with strikes and then go for a takedown, take you down. He was able to get me in a tight guillotine. But luckily the cage was on the side. I could fight his hands, and I was able to get up from that. And then just continue to press forward. Gave him a little bit more room than he should. He came in with a couple strikes, but I noticed that he kept lowering his head when he was trying to come in. So I just grabbed the back of his head, threw that knee, rocked him, and then ultimately just took him down to the ground and submitted him. So it was just basically play my own game. Whatever I felt, kind of, just try to take advantage of it, still be smart, and still be collected.
Can you please describe one day in your life?
So my life is kind of like, so I have a full-time job. So usually what happens is I'll wake up probably around like 5 o'clock in the morning. I either do cardio or strength and conditioning. And then sometimes I'll come back home, take my daughter to daycare, and then I'll go to my full-time job. I'm a project manager for a elevator company. So I'll do that from 8 o'clock to 4:30, and then from 4:30 I'll chill with the family for probably about an hour and a half, and then I'll go start training around like 7 o'clock, and then from 7 to 9 either do striking, jiu-jitsu, or whatnot, and then come home, try to get some sleep, and then wake up in the morning again and do it again. So training camps are a little tough, especially on a family life. It kind of puts a strain, but I know I'm doing this to kind of better their position and better their life. So I kind of have to make that sacrifice, and they understand. But if I had it, I would just be training, be at home with the kid and wife. But sometimes how life goes, you got to kind of make those sacrifices to get the future you want.
Do you have some plans for the future? Do you have somebody locked in your sights for the next fight, maybe?
No one yet. You know what I mean? I'm kind of, my mind is, I think the next prize that I have is for that CS 185 belt. I think I have the most, well, I think the most wins in CS middleweight. So I think I'm in line. Just give me another opponent so I can take care of him and then fight for the title next. That's my goals now. Just to get that CS 185 belt. But other than that, I don't have any my sights on any opponent as of yet. They're still in the talks. Like I typically like to take the first week after a fight and not really talk about who I'm fighting next or whatever. Just relax and chill, and then Monday morning comes to kind of focus my sights in on what my next objective is.
Would you like to give a shout out to somebody? Would you maybe like to greet someone or mention somebody we forgot to mention in the interview?
I would like to talk to mention my wife. Agata. She's a really big support of me and puts a lot of time and energy, especially this camp. I don't know if you know, but I was in the hospital 2 weeks before the fight for 4 days in the emergency room. I had a really bad skin infection, so I wasn't able to train for 4 days and wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to fight. But she kind of held down the fort per se, and was able to take care of my daughter as well as the house and everything that I needed. She took care of me as well. So shout out to her.
Great. Thank you so much for this interview. I will put the video to creation like in 2-3 hours. You can expect it online. We'll send you a link.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Have a great day.
All right, bye.